Dean Rose here for this Year of Well-Being, week number 17. Teach what you are learning. And this is not a very complicated idea, but it can set off a chain reaction that can improve things 10, 20, 30%. So, first of all, the mechanism of learning anything. It starts as a rough concept. You take it in, work with the idea, you get a sense of how you feel about it, you imagine how you might make a choice in your life because of what you've learned, take it down a level, you learn something, you make a change in your life, you embody it, and it affects you. You are now a slightly different person because the choice, it's kind of an incarnating V shape where it's now solid matter. And we can entertain a lot of ideas, but we can only do one thing at one time. For me to be standing here talking to you precludes every other thing I could possibly do with this moment in time. So it crystallizes, it's the densest form. It changes who we are, and then the question partly becomes one of enforcement. If we like the change, whether it's diet, whether it's changing our chauvinistic attitude, whether it's applying the 80-20 principle, anything that you've learned in the video, if you like the change in the idea, you want to take it as far as it can go. And so it kind of goes back through a process of rumination. And when you teach someone what you're learning and or what you've learned, it takes it to the next level because you've thought about it, you've felt about it, you've taken an action, and now you're putting it into words that are you. It's a viral pattern where you've taken in a virus from the outside, a meme, and now you're going to give it back to the outside. This creates sustainability, one of the other mechanisms that we'll talk about later. Sustainability, to give back as much as you receive, to leave the ground you've spent time in more beautiful than when you arrived. It's come in, but when it goes out, see, it came in the language and in the style of your teacher. But it's going out in your language and in your style. This is a chance for you to modify it slightly. I remember when someone taught me this concept, teach something as a way to learn it as a deeper level. It was something like that. And I would discover that there were all these different things I was learning, and I was forgetting many of them before I had a chance to fully embody them. And so one of my techniques was to write chapters in a book. And I would write the chapter based on what I was learning. So, Teach What You Are Learning could be the name of the chapter. And I'd sit down and write what made sense to me about that topic. And then I was done. And once I had a bunch of chapters, then the question was how to fit those into some kind of book. Not because I was an expert, not because I am an expert, but because it helps me remember. It helps me integrate that this is a part of me if I teach it in my own style. So this is my style. I heard about it in a few sentence one-liner, thought about it, started practicing. Now I'm giving it back to you in a diagram, in a video rather than a text, in my own style. I'll remember it more. I'll reach for it more naturally, having spoken it and shared it with you. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One is, as soon as you learn something, talk about it with a friend or a partner. Give them a call. I've just been learning this idea. I want to chat with you about it. What do you think about this? What do you think? Does that make sense? Have you tried this? Have you not tried it? So you're bringing it in this way, and you're bringing a useful idea to your friend or partner's awareness, to their attention. Probably more interesting than Seinfeld. Probably have more interesting impact on their life than a sitcom or whatever else they're doing when you bring up the topic. Another way, of course, is to write it in a journal. I learned this, that, and the other, and kind of teach yourself again in your own words. Say it to yourself. Another thing is write a little chapter in a book. I may or may not include that as an idea, but self-publishing books with the idea. See, here's kind of the win-win-win of the self-published book ecology for me in this dynamic. So first of all, if you pay attention to the majority of people, they don't clean up their house just because they're getting home. The majority of people wait for company. Why? Because in a certain sense, we all believe that other people are more important than we are. So it's like, I don't care about looking at those socks in the corner. I don't care about, do I really want to do a deep cleaning just so the odd stain doesn't show up? It's just easier to ignore the stain. But when company is coming over, when someone special is coming over, we get to give ourselves the gift of a clean and beautiful house. Why? Because we do it for them, and then we are the beneficiary. So we clean the house for them. They come for a few hours, and who gets to clean a house for the next week? We do. So we do it because of them. But what we do benefits us more than them, because it's our house. And this is a little bit like teaching. We do it because of them. We take a little bit more care. For example, the idea crosses my mind every now and again. Teach something to help you learn. Good idea, next. But then I say, no, I'm going to put this in my video, right? And then I think I want to make it a little special for you. So I have to think it through, like, well, what do I want to include? What do I not want to include? How have I done that? Am I doing that recently? Have I forgot about that? Am I, is there some new area in my life that I could do this that I'm not doing it? So you see, I'm doing it just like the person cleaning up for the guest. I'm doing it for you. But who does it benefit? Meaning you, if you're the majority of people, are going to pay absolutely no attention to this. The majority of people, fine, whatever, half attention, split attention, etc. You see, you may be cooking, you may be driving, you may be ignoring this, you may be watching something else on TV, etc., but I'm not. I have to get clear enough about this idea in order to share it with you. And in order to be that clear, I've got to pay attention. And we learn when we pay attention. And so it's the same with my books. I'm trying to remember something. It's like, what am I going to do? Go and make a note to myself I'm never going to read? I don't know about you, but I never go back and read my own diary or something. It's like I've got stacks and stacks of processes and ideas and this and that and the other. And it's like there's always something new. There's always a new idea. There's always a new thought. There's always a new goal. There's always a new possibility. And that's always more interesting than whatever I thought was a good idea last week, you know. And so I'm not going to go back to that. And knowing that, I'm just going to maybe take a few seconds to write it down. So when I take something that I'm learning and turn it into a chapter, however, I do something entirely different. I think, is this going to make sense? Let's see, I've met, 10,000 people. I remember that guy. Would he make sense of what I'm saying? Is this too long-winded? Is this too short? Is this, this person would bring up this argument, so let me include a counter-argument. So I go through a whole process of engaging with and flowing with a probability field, which is what an imaginary audience is, a probability field. There's no actual 10,000 people out there, listening to my speech. It's a probability field. Over time, there might be a dozen, there might be 100, there might be 1,000. It's a probability field. But I'm engaging with that probability field, and I'm growing because of it. And in the process of engaging with that probability field, the idea, the meme, the concept gets buffeted a little bit. And then I have to find what's true in it to make space for it, to say, no, this is a great idea. It's brought me a lot of well-being. So I'm advocating for this idea, and there's a tension, because absolutely no one, particularly in an information-saturated age, wants to have something new to process and think about. And so the minds, the instincts of the vast majority are saying, I don't want to hear this. What I want to hear is a reason not to have to listen to this, so that I don't have to think about it, so that I won't have to make a decision. I can just relax and go with the flow of whatever's going on without thinking and being responsible. Eric Fromm wrote a beautiful book, Escape from Freedom. I don't want the responsibility of deciding how and what to do with this kind of thing. So everyone's looking for reason. What an idiot. That guy doesn't even comb his hair properly. I don't. That guy is, did this and that, oh, what a weird voice. I don't want to listen to something with someone with a weird. And so it doesn't matter what nonsense we make up. We want to get rid of the idea as fast as we possibly can. And if we can't, we kind of seethe in there. It's like, okay, let's wait for him to fuck up, and then we'll get rid of the idea. Hooray, But going back to this book idea, when I sit down and write a chapter, I have to make it lucid enough to make sense to me and make sense to the probability field of the readership I'm imagining. This deepens my knowledge. Even if no one else ever reads that chapter, it deepens my knowledge. 2, it's exciting. It creates a certain sense of mattering. Like, what do I think about? What am I learning? Meaning, if I'm going to pass on what I'm learning to other people, is it worthwhile? Like, how to light a cigar without burning your hands on a lighter. It's like, is that really what world-class literature should be about? Well, I'm learning it, but is it a great idea? It's like, what? And this gives perspective. When trying to think of what could be valuable to others, it can zoom in on what's valuable for ourselves. But if we think about what's valuable to us, we may think on, how's the best way to load Netflix without getting out of my chair. When you think about how to give value to others, it's more like, I want to do something important. I want to do something that's going to make a difference, not just help them get fat by not getting out of their chairs. So what's it going to be? Well, then I have to think, and I have to learn that. And then, of course, who benefits? Me. Because you may not take this class or anything to the next level, but I am. My girlfriend's listening to this. Maybe she's going to start doing some of this stuff, and that benefits our relationship. So that's the first thing. One, clarifying. Two, perspective. Then three, it builds the muscle of concentration, and the linear logic aspect of the equation is quite important to be able to follow a value into a paradigm, into a sequence of mathematical thoughts that spit out an answer that has integrity, where it's not 2 + 2 - 6 + 4 = 3087. That may be intuitive, like 3087, that has a good ring to it, but it doesn't add up. And so when you're explaining something to someone, you get perspective not only on how relevant that thought is, but you get perspective on, is it logical? Is it logical to say, be positive? Turns out there's a great essay that shows that constructive pessimists, people who have a concern, a fear, an anxiety, an awareness of possible harm, who take radical action to see that it doesn't happen and increase the odds of something good happening, are more productive and successful than either deconstructive pessimists or optimists. So constructive pessimists. And of course, the worst is a deconstructive pessimist. A deconstructive pessimist is someone who doesn't do anything because they're expecting it to fail. I could write the book, but I'll never finish it, so I won't even bother. I could teach someone, but I'm going to fuck it up, so I'm not going to even try. That's a deconstructive pessimist. A constructive pessimist, someone like Bill Gates, if you read the Microsoft biography, is constantly in paranoid frenzy. What'll happen if we get taken over here? He's reading biographies of Fortune 500 companies that are going bankrupt. And he realizes Microsoft could be next. And he is terrified. The next company that's just going to eat up his company. So he's in a frenzy, a constructive frenzy. He's putting $30 billion in the bank for such an emergency. In cash, he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing that. He is in a frenzy to stop the worst thing from happening. He's a deconstructive pessimist. Deconstructive optimists are just as bad as deconstructive pessimists. They say the universe means it to happen. If it's meant to be, it will happen, so I don't have to do anything. This is the optimist that gets handed a pizza. This is a Domino's delivery boy. He gets handed a pizza. Quick, get this to XXX address in the next 20 minutes. And he says, the universe is a positive force. If this pizza was meant to be, I'm sure it'll work out. Someone will come by and take this pizza to the next delivery, and it'll all be meant to be, and da-da-da-da-da. This is a deconstructive optimist who creates the illusion that other forces out of his or her control are going to make the positive things happen. So and uses that excuse not to do anything, and then they don't happen, and they're like, gee, well, there was probably a good reason for that. Who knows? Maybe they had a wheat allergy, so it's just as well. And it's probably just as well I got fired from my job because there's probably a better job out for me there. And when the universe decides it's meant to be, this is this passive optimism as opposed to constructive optimism. I believe that something amazing is possible, so I'm going to work like hell to see that it happens. And if it isn't happening, I'm going to keep working because I believe it can until I succeed. Constructive positivism. So you can analyze the logic of that. You know, when you're writing a chapter, be positive. You start saying, well, what about my dad? Every time we say, Dad, why haven't you done this and this thing you're responsible for? He comes up with this excuse. And when we say, Dad, that's not going to work, he says, be positive, support me. It's like saying, you've got a hole in your boat. The water is 2 feet deep. You have got to do something immediately or your boat is going to sink. The captain of the boat, if they're an idiot, is going to say, well, whatever's meant to be is meant to be. No. Your boat, meant to be or not, will sink unless you start the bilge pump. Well, I'm sure it'll all work out. And you say, no, you're an idiot. You are going to lose the boat, and it's not even your money. You borrowed money from your friends to buy this boat you're not taking care of. Well, you know, what's meant to be is meant to be. That's life, isn't it? And the boat sinks. It's like, what are you criticizing me for? You know, so this is an idiot. This is an idiot usage of be positive. So when you write a chapter, you have to think about is it an intelligent equation? Be positive. Usually the people with the biggest mantras of be positive are hiding from a terrifying truth that they're not able to deal with. Because to tell someone your boat is sinking is positive. If the universe really meant things to happen, maybe it meant you to listen, you've got a problem. Are you going to do something? I don't want the responsibility, escape from freedom. So it allows the examination of the logic of a truth so that it doesn't just stay some little party instinct, but actually you can start saying, okay, this is good here, it's not good here. It's good here, it's not good here. It's okay here, it's confusing here. It's not an absolute truth. Now, I could do all of that. You can do all of this and not tell anyone. If you will learn new ideas every day, watch TED Talks, watch interesting documentaries, watch these blogs here. If you will take this into your life, if you will make changes, if you will measure the impact of the change, if you will measure the amount of time, money, and energy you spend making the change and measure the time, money, and energy received as a result of the change, the return on investment, and you make clear changes in your life, following the 80-20% principle, ignoring 80% of what I'm saying, focusing on the 20% that can really make a difference. If you do that, your life will change for the better. You'll see it yourself. You'll make the notes. The question is, if you're going to do all that, if you're going to think something, write it down, do the linear logic, gain perspective, check that it works, why not share it with someone else? Because that's when you get the chance to be challenged. Challenged in what? The fact that no truth is complete. The fact that every one of us has blind spots. And the fact that if you don't know what yours is, your friends and people you try to spout whatever it is you're trying to say probably do know what your blind spots are. The question is, who's going to benefit from learning your blind spots? You are. How are you going to learn where your logic is faulty, blah, 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 if you're not sharing it with someone else? Someone else who, if you're very fortunate, will spell out the equation where you may have gotten it wrong. The bit of code that says, no, it's not 0010, it's 01000 for this reason. The equation doesn't make sense without this being clarified. Or it needs a new line of code. It needs a new distinction. The universe is always hot. The universe is always cold. What's going on? What is it? Which one is true? No. You need space-time. Then you can say this area of space-time is cold. This area of space-time is hot. The universe is both. You need space-time before that can be made into an equation. So now it's both. The universe is hot. The universe is cold. It's cold here and here. It's hot here and here. So if you take that final last step to share it with others, and you share it with people who are smarter than you, hallelujah! They're going to teach you faster than people who don't like thinking at all. Who are just going to say, yeah, man, that's deep. Yeah, man. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. It's like, you've learned a lot, haven't you? Nothing. You've learned absolutely nothing. You share it with someone smarter than you, they're listening to you talk, and they're saying, he missed that one. Ooh, I wonder if he knows that. He hasn't said it. He hasn't said anything either way. Let's see if he knows that. Did you know that this? No, I didn't know that. Well, then that's your blind spot. Who benefits when you don't have blind spots? Everyone else? Sure. You're not going to hit them racing down the road at 80 miles per hour thinking you see everything and ram right into them. They're going to benefit. But you're going to benefit more. You're not going to hit and run into a concrete post because you didn't see it. You are going to benefit. So you take that last step. So that's kind of what I have to do. It's like, if I want to learn something, if I want to gain perspective, is it worth writing a chapter about? In this case, a blog about. If I want to test the logic each step of the way, I'm going to do pretty much all the work. You know, if I want to give this lecture to an empty room with no camera, I still have to do it. I still have to think about what I said, and what usually happens after these blogs is I remember the loose ends that I forgot to say. Well, next time I do a little better job. So teach what you're learning. So let's go into the last technique. Now, little data here. 99 point whatever percent of all self-published authors lose money. Most books, self-published or not, lose money for the publisher, for the author, I make hundreds of dollars an hour doing my contracting work. I am never in a million years going to make enough money doing, blogging this and that to offset that. If I talk to you for an hour, think average $200. And I was like, if I spend another 2 hours, I can get Google to pay me $10 an average. Bullshit. You know what? It's junk. It's junk. If I talk to someone for 20 minutes, they'll buy my book. Just cost me $50 to make a $10 book profit. It's a joke. So I give that as context, because if you can make money anywhere at all, $10 an hour babysitting, you're going to make more money that way as a statistic, as a probability field, than paying someone $6,000 to publish your masterpiece and and selling a few hundred copies to your friends. It's not going to pay off, or filling your garage up. So with that in mind, I'll give you a few little pointers on how I disseminate. Now, I'm doing video because it's even easier. It's easier and faster than typing. Easier on my hands. What a weird mechanism to turn our thoughts into little characters, into little, as Terence McKenna would say, mouth noises, and then tap away at a weird flat surface keeping our body stationary. My body's, I'm getting a little bit of exercise here. Not, carpal tunnel, stuff like that. So I've gotten tired, having published 10 books, of writing a book. However, I recommend it. I recommend you write 3 books, just on this little sideline here, of how to teach what you're learning. I recommend it. Hopefully, if you are learning 50 things a year that are worth learning, if you're not learning 50 things a year that are worth learning, get learning. I mean, give me a break. 50 things, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. If 50 of those aren't worth anything in a year, you're living a mediocre mind life. Get on it. So if you're learning anything, well, that's 50 chapters. These do not have to be 10 pagers, 20 pagers, theological discourses from this and that and the other, footnotes. No. Teach what you are learning. Studies have shown you learn more when you teach it, and you remember more what you learned when you wrote it down. Therefore, take some time to write down and share with someone else what you're learning. Next chapter. Don't waste people's time belaboring something to such an extent like I do. Just get moving. So, so done. What are you learning next day, next week, etc.? Write it down. And then you're going to have to edit it. You're going to have to read it once at least before you give it out. Why? Because you're embarrassed about typos and all the things this culture says are important. Here's the good news. You're going to actually have to pay attention to what you said to get to that point. That's good news. Why? Because you're going to think about good topics one more time. Every time you consciously change your mental emotional ecology, you consciously influence the choices you're going to make. And if you're picking good topics, that's taking your life, which pivots on choices, not on just ideas. Oh, it's a great idea. I'm not going to do anything about it. Your life is still the same, at least on the outside. Well, inside, I'm imagining I'm a filmmaker. Outside, I'm still doing accounting. Okay, well. So back to books. Why do 3? Well, first of all, this culture, in its chauvinism, its left brain obsession with lineal logic, is going to value you as an author more than you as just a blogger. See, this is more feminine. It's more intelligent. It's more intuitive. It's more embodied. So it's like, yeah, anyone can do that. It takes a real professional to sit down and hammer away, at weird ideas and formatted page. Wow, that's deep, That's a published author. That's how people look at it. I wanted to teach landscape design at a prestigious college. People have been telling me for years, you're an exceptionally good designer and you communicate it so well, So I said, okay, I'd like to teach this class at this college. They said, well, are you a PhD, this, that, and the other? I said, no, I've just been doing this for 20 years and it helps people. That's why I'm doing it. You don't pay me enough money to be worth my time, but I'd like to help people. They said, have you written any books? I said, no. Well, I have, just not on gardening. They said, well, we're not interested. Idiots, right? They cannot tell competency without a reference point that's culturally sanctioned, and books are one of those reference points. So it just so happens the 2009 economy hits. My industry goes in half in a couple of months. So there's the same amount of contractors, half the amount of work. Well, this is not good news. And so that means there's everyone's competing for a much smaller pie. And so I decide, great time to sit down and write a book. Doesn't cost anything. So I sat down and I wrote the only local book about landscape design and construction in my whole area. Went back, and I hate doing handouts. I've done classes since I was in my teens, on different landscape topics through community colleges and this and that. And I hate doing the handouts. That's my worst part of teaching in class. Photocopying those damn, 15 pages of this and this and that. And the questions are always the same for a given class. So I thought, no more handouts. I'm going to teach some classes again. That's what people want to do, work themselves when the economy is tanking and all that. And so I wrote this book, and I wrote it so that I would never have to give a handout, because I put a chapter for every class topic that I did that would be a substitute for a handout. So one book has all the handouts, number one. Number two, I made it as useful as possible, so that no one in my area doing landscape design could possibly help learning tons of useful things. Made it as valuable as possible. And I produced the book. It took me 3 months. Go back to the prestigious college. Like to teach a class. Here's my book. Oh, we'd be delighted to teach. I haven't learned anything more than the year before. But what I'm getting at is, if you teach in a book, or at least do a few, suddenly Dane Rose, successfully published author of the only local landscape book, this, that, the other, is teaching this class. We're proud to announce, we have to go to that class. We have, that's a useful book. I read that book, that I want to talk to that guy, blah, 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 blah. So in this way, my income went up in the recession. So this is just a little business tip for those of you on that track. You write a brilliantly useful, not brilliant, brilliantly useful. Why do you buy rototillers here at your local shop rather than here at your local shop? How to use Amazon rather than the local shops? When to use the local shops rather than Amazon? Where to get the best soil of the 3 local soil producers around here? Who has the best price? Who has the best product? Who has delivery people that drop oil on your newly poured driveway? Useful stuff. Who's got that? Who does what? What are the pros and cons? What goes through my mind as a professional when I'm dealing with all this stuff? I'll pick this person unless it's an emergency, and they usually take 2 or 3 days to deliver. Then I'll go to this. I'll pay more money, but it'll keep the job flowing, blah, 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 blah. Just put it all out there. Make a useful book. So I do it. Make a useful book. 10% of the people in my class hire me. I think it was 40%. My first class, 40% of the people hired me, because they learn in a book. It's difficult. It's not just throw some seeds out there. It's integrating drainage and lighting and grading and view management and thinking about real estate value and what the typical buyer is interested in, integrating home and landscape front and back so it feels cohesive. It's the whole thing. It's bringing water, it's doing irrigation, it's deer management, it's fencing and privacy, it's home security, it's all of it. And they realize, here's a mind that's thinking about everything important to me. So, of course, I have to learn a few more things to write that book. So it was good for my career in learning things, 1. 2, I help a bunch of people. It's a community service. Again, if you're going to do all this, why not take the extra step to share the knowledge? Not because you're the best, but because it's better than nothing. And this is my only standard, by the way. It's better than nothing. I guarantee you, there's a guy out there, there's a gal out there. First of all, they have a much better camera setup than me. Much better. Better sound, da-da-da-da-da. Thirdly, they, took the time to dress up or whatever. Took the time to shave, They're doing all that better than me. And some of them dug up better quotes. You notice I don't bother with quotes for the most part. They're doing it better. Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know where that better thing. And it would take me 3 hours to research and find who's the best person who talks about this. It takes me an hour to just make a video. And then you've got options, because I also guarantee you I've included a few things in this topic that no one else has included, because that's what makes us unique. That's the gift. And the topics that I care about, I always get 2 or 3 opinions. I listen to this guy here, I listen to this guy here, I listen to this guy here, and I listen to their slants. And I pick the best of all of them. The 80-20 principle. Listen and do 20% of what I'm saying. So that's the reason that I like books. Create Space, just a little freebie. Create Space, Amazon's division. Go on YouTube, learn how to create a book on Create Space. It can take as little as 20 minutes to create a single chapter. As soon as you've got 30 or more chapters, why not publish a book? Now you've got this little socially sanctioned thing, I'm a published author, which is absolutely absurd, but this culture cares about. This is a cult that cares about published authors. So you become one, the cult cares about you. It's absurd. It's just the way it works. So teach what you are learning. Learn useful things and understand that if you do all the steps necessary, to put something really, really clearly, you are the beneficiary. Not the audience, hopefully they are too. But 100% sure, because I don't do marketing. Again, see, I get to learn all this stuff if I do the work. But I don't learn anything else if I go around hyping my stuff. So I expect a very small audience. But I'm one of that audience, and I go away richer. Let me know if you teach anything. Let me know if you teach anything. Let me know if it benefits them. But most importantly, let me know if it benefits you. Thanks for watching.